What I know is that making good money doesn't make you good with money.
Right.
Thought is not the way to rewire ourselves. We have to incorporate the body.
Okay, so tell me the ways. Welcome to the High Vibe Life podcast, where we are obsessed with all things manifestation, neuroscience, personal growth, and quite simply, living a life beyond our wildest dreams. I'm Moira, author, speaker, podcaster, manifestation, and mindset master. Since getting sober 25 years ago, I've helped tens of thousands of women break through and achieve massive levels of wealth, joy, and freedom. Now it's your turn. Let's dig in. Well, welcome back to the show, you guys. I am so excited for you to hear this episode, to hear Miss Kate Northrup is in the house today. Kate, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I am really excited about this conversation. It's something that I talk about a lot with my audience, and I feel like everyone needs, right? You do a lot of work with humans around healing their relationship with money. So we're going to dig into this topic today. What would you say if I was to ask you and meet you in an elevator and say, "Oh, what do you do?" How would you summarize that?
I always say, I help people have a better relationship with money, primarily women, but increasingly more and more men are showing up, which is great. But yeah, historically, women for thousands of years were property instead of owning property. And so there's just some cleanup to do. Yeah. And there's some cleanup to do not only in the logistics and skill sets, which plenty of people are teaching, but what the biggest missing piece is the subconscious and unconscious patterning that lives in our nervous system. So fundamentally, most women don't feel safe with money. And so I work with a very integrated nervous system approach and then build on the skill sets and the practicals of financial stewardship, wealth building, making more money, all the energetics, the manifesting, but we have to start with feeling safe with money first.
So good. Okay. I love this. You teach this to thousands and thousands of people. I mean, let's start with this though. How did you get here? Like, what led you to this work? How long have you been doing it? Tell me all the things.
I have been learning about wealth consciousness since my early teens.
Wow.
I know, which is kind of crazy. I was just like into money. So I recently found a little brochure that I created in second grade. It was like an about me brochure, and it said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I had written that I wanted to be an accountant.
Wow.
Which is funny for like a 8-year-old girl.
Yeah. That's usually the last thing on the list.
Like my girls want to be like astronauts and like pop stars, and I put accountant. I'm not an accountant, but I knew that like they dealt with money, and I was excited about it. My mom and my dad got divorced when I was 15, 16, and my mom was a very successful doctor and author, but she realized she had known nothing about money. And so there she was at the age of 50, suddenly divorced.
Wow.
Handling her money on her own for the first time. And even with this wildly successful career, behind the scenes, she had no idea what she was doing because she had given all financial decisions and power to my dad, just assuming because he was a man, he would know what he was doing.
Right.
And she started getting herself on the fast track to financial literacy at that time. And because my sister had gone to college, my dad was now out of the house, it was just me and my mom. And so I started going to these workshops with her, started going to these seminars, reading Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, reading Catherine Ponder's The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity, reading all of Robert Kiyosaki's stuff. So I was just early in the world. And then in my 20s, I had misunderstood the instructions around manifesting money and like wealth energetics that say act as if, and instead I spent as if.
I was just about to say, did you spend?
Yeah, I spent as if. And so I ended up in a bunch of credit card debt, and I was a classic financial avoider for years. I never knew how much I made. I never knew how much I spent, except for the one day a year, when I did my taxes, which was like incredibly stressful. And I thought that somehow if I just like did the right manifesting things, I wouldn't actually have to do the adult part of taking care of my money.
Right.
Turns out that's not true. But so I knew I needed to get it together, but all of the personal finance advice I was reading was like the practical stuff, not the metaphysical stuff. The metaphysical stuff was fun.
Yeah.
But the practical stuff made me feel like I was in trouble.
Yes.
And I just like the whole vibe was boring and overwhelming and like crunchy.
Yeah.
And so I created a curriculum for myself to figure this out because I knew no one was coming along to save me, even though I really wish they were, but they weren't. And so putting together this curriculum that incorporated fun and pleasure and really healing my emotions around money is what got me out of my credit card debt in 6 months. I also doubled my income.
Wow.
Doubled my savings. And it wasn't because I married a rich guy or like got an inheritance or got a high paying job. It wasn't any of those things. It was the internal shifts that shifted my external reality. And that curriculum became my first book, Money, A Love Story. And then I went on to get married, have a couple babies. And in 2021, my husband was really sick for the second time. And we were paying for 2 lives all of a sudden. He was my business partner and he couldn't work. And so it was very, very stressful. We had moved to Miami somewhat under duress for a bunch of pandemic reasons. It was just a very strange time. And for so many people, for so many reasons. Yeah. And I was stuck in this resentment loop. And the resentment and fear loop was really focused on if he would just get well and make a bunch of money, I could finally exhale. Like I felt so much pressure, so much tightness, all this financial fear and pressure and stress. And so our therapist one day had me close my eyes and go inside and said, okay, imagine that Mike has just come home with $10 million. And he's like, babe, I just made $10 million. So for now, you don't have to do anything. And David said, how does that feel inside you? Like, what are you noticing? And the amazing thing about our bodies is they have no sense of time.
Right.
And our psyche, our unconscious, does not know the difference between if something is actually happening or if we are imagining it happening, which is why exercises like this are so powerful. Our body is always telling the truth. And what I felt was very surprising to me because I would have expected I felt relieved and, big exhale and maybe even excited. And instead I felt flatlined. I felt like I was dead inside. And so what that told me was that I was addicted to stress and pressure.
The problem wasn't
variety.
him.
The problem was not him. The problem was that I kept unconsciously manufacturing an environment in which I could get my hit of stress and pressure and sort of this shadow thing of getting off on being the one to like make it all happen.
Yes. Power trip.
So the power trip of like, look at me. And it was like, very like hierarchical and like, and so at that time I worked on a 90-day experiment. And that 90-day experiment was, okay, I'm just going to coast. I'm not going to launch anything new. I'm not going to create any marketing campaigns to make money from this place of fear and pressure and like ramp up energy. Anytime I feel that energy, the only thing I'm allowed to do is relax. Wow. So even though all the external circumstances are indicating this is not a time to relax, I'm just going to relax first and see what happens. And in that 90 days, I really rewired my nervous system. And what was shocking is that without any of that ramp up energy, without the stress and pressure, we hit all of our financial goals. Wow. And everything was fine. Yeah. Like more than fine. And by the end of it, I had now had a lived experience of what it felt like to shift my nervous system programming. And things have never been the same since. And so that's where the nervous system piece came in. I'd been doing the money work for nearly a decade. but I still had this set point for stress and pressure and some degree of financial, I don't want to say chaos, but like a financial disorder of some kind. And I knew I wasn't alone in that, because by that time I already had a 7-figure business.
Right.
And if more money was going to solve it, it would have already.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I have so many questions. So when you say you've been doing the money work for so many years, is that more of like the mental work, the subconscious, right? The
more
mind?
Psychologically focused.
Right.
Yeah. So like, okay, let's look at our beliefs. Let's look at our thoughts. Let's change our words. So it's very much focused on the mind, which is wonderful. Our mind is incredibly powerful. However, if we're not incorporating a physiological experience with our psychological work, we're not actually healing at the core level, because our thoughts and beliefs are inextricably linked with our neural patternings, which go all through our brain and our body.
Yes.
And I had been leaving out the body part, which the vast majority of personal development work does.
Yep. I'm right there with you, sister. I'm like, I think I'm right here. I think so many of us are. And so my question is, what does that work look like, right? You said you would pause every time you felt that feeling come up. You would pause and you would make yourself relax before anything happened, before you took any action. How in the world did you make yourself relax? Like it can't just be one way, right?
So that is, what I said in my story is a bit of an oversimplification, obviously, because we can't just tell ourselves to relax.
Right.
If that worked, we would all feel quite calm.
Right.
Like when you tell someone who's freaking out to calm down, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because when we have an overflowing stress and threat bucket, our brain and nervous system cannot actually take in anything new.
Yep.
It cannot use our prefrontal cortex as the primary processing area. Our prefrontal cortex is where we go when we're like present here, we're having a conversation, we're connecting, we're feeling available, we're present, we're powerful, we're feeling peaceful. Our prefrontal cortex are where our best decisions are made. It is where we have our widest peripheral vision, literally and metaphorically. Like we can see the possibilities, we can see the nuance. And so that's the part of our brain that is optimal to be functioning from. But our survival brain is oftentimes running the show when our nervous system is dysregulated. So I had been running our business to some degree from dysregulation, from a place of stress and pressure and fear, because our nervous systems have a thermostat set point for what we come back to no matter what. And that thermostat setting is based on what the environment was like in our childhood. The environment in my childhood was around stress and pressure, having to do with time and having to do with money. And there was always a sense of like, we're behind, there's too much to do, and it's all linked in with external markers of success and making money somehow. And so no matter what happened, I would come back to that thermostat setting at every income level. And I kept focused on like, well, if I just make more money, this feeling will go away.
Right.
But actually, we have to learn to rewire the feeling so that we'll change our behavior. Our behavior is a result of a nervous system set point, of a nervous system imprint. And so the thing is, nervous system imprints get unraveled and healed, and we build new neural connections through metabolizing stress, previous stress and current stress. My stress and threat bucket at that time in 2021 was unbelievably overflowing. I had 2 young children. My mom was getting canceled publicly on the internet and deplatformed. It was also the pandemic for everyone. Like there was just so many things. My sick husband, like there was no real diagnosis for him. There was nobody really knew what was going on. So there was no clear treatment plan. So it was less like, we're here. It could be forever. It could be another month. Like we have no idea. So what I needed to do when I say relax, that was not available. Right. And you tell somebody to relax, that's not available to them because they're in their survival brain. Mm-hmm. So in our survival brain, we actually need to signal to our body that we're safe. We can't tell ourselves we're safe because you tell somebody you're safe, but if their body doesn't feel safe, it will not change how you feel.
Yeah.
An emotion is not in your mind. It is in the body. Like it is physiological. And so, or it's in the mind and the body as well.
Right.
And so what I did during that time was a lot of feeling the discomfort of remaining still when I was addicted to being in action to avoid feeling all my feelings.
So hard.
When I say what I relaxed, here's what I was actually doing. I was watching some daytime television, which felt extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because like as a good girl, straight A student type, like you like watch TV when the kids are at school. Like that's not during the workday. Like, oh my God. So just sitting with the discomfort of how naughty that felt.
Yeah.
And number two was I did a lot of screaming into pillows in my closet because I was very, very angry. Mm. And so it was a lot of releasing of pent up anger, which always ended with me also having like a big, big cry. So it was like anger first, big cry.
Yeah.
I was calling my girlfriends on FaceTime and like crying with them about how I felt like I was dying. And because part of me was like old ways of being were literally dying. That's what's happening when we're rewiring our identity.
Yes. Yes.
Old parts of us are literally dying. So that felt awful. And then going down and sitting by the ocean and asking the ocean what messages it had for me, which also felt deeply uncomfortable.
Right.
All of this it didn't feel good. I'll just be honest. Like we have this illusion that like relaxation feels good. If doing less felt good, we would all be doing less.
Yes.
But actually it feels like dying.
Right. Right.
For most of us.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when I say I was like relaxing, what I mean is I wasn't in hyper action.
Right.
And I was actually sitting with what was there. And what was there was really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Which is the hardest thing to do because you're doing the work. And I think so often when we talk about, the healing journey or the road back to wholeness, people think like, oh, that's a beautiful road. And we're like, no, it's
really gnarly.
It's gnarly and it's so uncomfortable and it's so hard. And when you're in it, I'm sure you felt this. I'm like, oh, this is why I get a different payoff on the back end than most people, because most people would never do this, right? It's that uncomfortable.
It really is that uncomfortable. Yeah. But it's also so, it's really worth it. Like, and I, like that discomfort, it's different than the discomfort of like it's not masochistic.
Right.
Right. There actually is something you are doing and you literally are rewiring your brain and nervous system to be different. Like there are ways I was before that I can no longer be because my automatic responses are now different because of the reps I put in of like, okay, stimulus is I'm feeling stressed about my husband's illness and now I'm stressed about money. My previous response was, let me get to work.
Right.
And instead I created more space between stimulus and response.
Yes. And
sat with it so that then there was a new response, which was like, okay, I'm going to feel my feelings. And then I'm going to return to my desk and say like, what actually matters here?
Right.
And it turns out most of us don't need to be doing nearly as many things to get the same result or better.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh my gosh, you just said something that like, I actually saw this on your social and I was like, oh, this is something that I'm super passionate about, right? Whenever we feel the pressure that we're not making enough money or business isn't where we want it to be, we automatically go into, well, I should diversify. Everybody says diversify. I should add more things, add more things, add more things. That's not the time to add more things, whether we're talking about the business path and diversifying there or just life, right? It's so counterintuitive to what we think we should do, but it's the time to simplify, right? Would you speak into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So in 2022, so about a year after this whole scenario had happened, we were, maybe it was, I don't know, time is a little tricky, regardless.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway,
I feel you on that.
In a recent past year, at the beginning of the year, I decided, because I had a feeling of heaviness inside me as I looked at my year and I looked at mapping everything out and what I was trying to fit on my calendar. And it wasn't even that it was like objectively too much, but I had a feeling that it was heavy. And I have learned enough to know that my body knows something that my brain has not yet caught up with.
Yes.
So I trust that. So I was like, oh, this is feeling heavy. This is feeling tight. What's going on? And as we looked, I realized there were two of our revenue streams, which together were bringing in over $1 million. So one of them was a membership, which was wildly successful. We'd been going for 6.5 years, very high retention rates. Some months we had a 98% retention rate. Like it was a great offer, multiple 6-figure, membership. Next one was this mastermind, and the mastermind, it's still hard for me to believe this, but I was easily filling this mastermind and the spots were $50K each.
Wow.
I was like,
it's amazing.
Weird. Yeah.
Amazing.
But so neither of these things were like not working.
Right.
But now I've gotten rid of plenty of things that aren't working. We can talk about that too.
Yes,
I don't want to
there's
say
lots of those as well.
Yeah. Just because these two things were working doesn't mean I haven't had plenty of flops. But even then I was like, there is something new that wants to come through here. And it was this work around money and women and healing in the nervous system.
I love it.
And I needed more space for that to grow. And so I got rid of both of those revenue streams without an exact plan for how they were going to be replaced by the end of the year. And what ended up happening, which happens every single time I do sort of a dramatic pruning, just like if you have petunias at your house and you deadhead the petunias, so you take off all the dead heads, they blossom all fresh. Those little freaking petunias just boom. They're so beautiful. And we have to do the same thing in our lives and in our businesses. So I took out those offerings. We actually had people registered for the mastermind. I just refunded them or like exchanged it for something else, which I'm never afraid to do. Because I do not believe in delivering on something just for the money. Right. Like that is one of my tenets. I never do anything just for the money. And what happened was that year we increased our revenue by like 50%, which was a good year, especially given that we weren't doing any we were still in some rebuilding after my husband's illness, to be honest. And so that was a huge win for us. And then we've been able to double down on that one item, which is a program called Relaxed Money, and cut out nearly everything else. And it just keeps growing. And what it does for myself and the team, like we're getting ready for that program right now. I teach it live and I'm like, oh, every year I get to revisit this and refine it and polish it and make it even better and deepen. Because I'm not starting from scratch again. So the marketing gets better. The customer experience gets better. We're getting to integrate all these like revolutionary tools so that we can deliver an unbelievable experience and result to our customers. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I was still having my membership, this thing, that 25 things, because I was just spread too thin.
Yeah. I love this conversation so much because I have, a podcast, a mastermind, a course. Like over the years, I've, just you keep stacking on the things. And so many people that look up to me they're doing what they think they should do. I'm following in your footsteps. I'm diversifying like you. And I'm like, well, wait, the year that like all the shit hit the fan, I actually shut down my $500,000 mastermind, like just didn't run it. And they're like, but wait, I don't understand. And I'm like, because I had to simplify and focus. And what's happening for me as you're explaining this, Kate, is like, even when I saw the Instagram post, when you talked about one offer and one kind of funnel and one, audience that you were pitching to, like, it just feels like freedom to me. Yeah. It feel like I have a feeling in my body. That's the feeling that we're talking about paying attention to, right? When you come up against somebody doing something in the world and you have that feeling, not of, oh my gosh, I should diversify. I should do more. I should do what they're doing. I should do a mastermind. I should do a course. I should do a podcast. That's not the good feeling. When you feel that lightness come in, that's where we're saying, go pursue that. And I love that you're able to do that today and serve at such a higher level, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're able to and then even we used to do our signature launch twice a year. And then last year we also took another flying leap. And I was like, in the middle of the launch, before I knew what the launch numbers were going to be, I was like, we're going to announce that this is only one time this year.
Yeah.
And we're going to cross our fingers. We have enough enrollments for that to be true.
Yeah.
And I think we increased our sales by 70%.
Wow.
By only doing the launch one time. So that's the other thing is okay. And then the whole second half of the year, I was able to write a book proposal and, and do other things. And so that's the other thing I think about a lot, is legacy work and what's timeless, right?
Yes.
So an Instagram post that goes viral is not timeless. That's gone in 3 days. A podcast episode, maybe it's timeless, but it's it does have a shorter shelf life.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe people might listen to it in 10 years.
Right.
Unlikely. Yeah. And so I'm really focused on what is my legacy work? What is timeless? And we cannot ever get into that if we're constantly marketing 35 different things, glued to social media. What's the latest trend? What's this? Da, da, da. And I'll be fully honest, right? When I stopped doing my own social exclusively, our engagement did go down.
Yeah.
Our growth did go down.
Right.
I don't care.
Yes. I love this, Kate.
It did.
Yes.
It just did. Because that is not the highest and best use of me.
And we get so just obsessed with this, but we have to look at some of the biggest world changers out there. They're not caring about their Instagram likes, right? Or the reel that they're not sitting on their couch obsessing about a reel in the morning.
Nope.
I love that you just said legacy work. We need to be thinking bigger than the algorithm, bigger than social media platforms. Oh, so good.
And it doesn't mean and we have a team member who does handle that. So I also want to say, over time, of course, you can grow so that you can train and delegate those things, which I highly, highly recommend. And now with AI, honestly, there is so much more freedom available to us, but we won't take advantage of it if we haven't healed those deeper nervous system patternings that have us addicted to stress and pressure, that are like little honing devices bringing us back to that thermostat of stress. And because, the quote is, I don't know who said it, but our nervous system will always choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven.
So true.
Until we actually do the healing work.
Yeah. And I think for people to understand that the uncomfortable that we're talking about, it can be as simple as, if you're thinking about going down this one path that's maybe you go to the sugar, you go to the sugar, you go to the sugar, you go to the sugar. It's just, that's your habit. That's the neural pathway. That's that's your response to stress. And it's unhealthy. We can all, especially as women, relate to how incredibly uncomfortable it is to not grab the sugar. Like it's physically uncomfortable because you're feeling the feeling instead of numbing the feeling. But once you do that enough times, there's so much on the other side of that. That is so good. And it becomes so much easier. And I think it becomes so much easier pretty quickly. Yes. If we actually think about it. It's not painful and uncomfortable for long. But let's dig back into that. I love this work with the nervous system. And this sounds like a really silly question, Kate, but like even for some people out there probably thinking, what exactly is the nervous system?
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Yes. So the nervous system is the electrical of your body. Mm-hmm. So it is the network of nerves that goes all the way through your brain and body. Nearly everything in your body has some aspect of the nervous system, like your hair doesn't, your fingernails don't. Like pretty much everything else has nerves. And it's this incredible communication network that functions primarily with electricity. It's the part of us that is a light being. Yeah. And so our nervous system is responsible for all the little micro adjustments that happen without us having to think about it, which is such a blessing because we have billions and billions, I think actually possibly 40 trillion different pieces of information available to us in any given moment. Right. And so our brain and our nervous system is responsible for filtering out that which is important and not important, that which is a threat and not a threat. Mm-hmm. All of that stuff happens pretty much automatically so that we can zero in on just what is salient and relevant right now, which, in this case, it's like we're having this conversation. Right. I'm not thinking about my grocery list. I'm not thinking about my Instagram. I'm not also checking my texts. I'm not trying to remember to breathe. I'm not reminding my heart to beat. I'm not like trying to stand up straight and like remind my body how to balance. All of those things physiologically, my body is just doing on its own. Respiration, all of it. So beautiful digestion. Like it's doing an amazing job. And so our nervous system, however, is wired for survival. And so everything that it registers as unfamiliar, because our nervous system is always, our brain and nervous system are always tracking for familiarity. And if you think about human evolution, it makes sense because we evolved at a time when pretty much we lived in communities of about 150 people in the same area, more or less, doing more or less the same things. So the level of novelty we have in our lives right now is absolutely unprecedented. And our evolution of our brain and nervous system is not happening as fast as the evolution of technology and communication in the greater world. So we are not designed to be taking in the amount of stimulus that we take in a given day about literally every single human being on the planet. Like we can have information about what everyone is doing at all times. It's just actually too much for our filtering systems. So our stress and threat buckets. Now there's so many other reasons why our stress and threat buckets are overflowing, toxic chemicals, the news cycle, negative thinking, not getting enough sleep, hormonal stuff. Like there's so many different traumas from our past, ancestral traumas, collective traumas, so many things. And so our nervous system holds the stress. And so our job is to learn ways that metabolize the stress and dump our stress and threat bucket, because just like if you had a house, an old house, and you wanted to redo the electrical, it's expensive. Yeah. Takes a long time. You got to hire an electrician. You got to take out the walls. You got to do all the things. You got to redo the drywall. You got to redo your wallpaper. The whole thing is expensive. In our bodies, it's the same. Rewiring our neural patterning so that we have different automatic responses is expensive, calorically speaking. So our bodies don't want to do it if our stress and threat bucket is overwhelmed already, overflowing already, because our bodies will be like, no, now is an incredibly stressful time. We cannot use the calories for learning a new skill, changing a belief, or experiencing anything outside the narrow band of what's already familiar. Now, what's tricky for us around women and money specifically is that for most of us, our goals around money, our desires around money are to experience things we've never experienced before. And frequently to experience things our family has never experienced before and experience things that most women we know have never experienced before. So according to our nervous system, every single one of our financial goals is a total threat to our survival.
Right, because it's unfamiliar.
It will do anything it can to prevent us from experiencing that, including making sure we don't think positively about money, making sure that we are either hypervigilant or avoidant or some combination of the two, sabotaging us when we're in sales or negotiation conversations. Man. There are so many signs of financial dysregulation.
Yeah.
And the good news is the solution is neuroplasticity, which all of us are neuroplastic. We can change our wiring at any time, but it cannot be done through thought. Thought is not the way to rewire ourselves. We have to incorporate the body because the nervous system is the brain and the body. And what we know is that 80% of the communication goes from the body to the brain in the nervous system, not from the brain to the body. Only 20% brain to body, 80% body to brain. So if we want to get the biggest bang for our buck, we need to be working with the body in specific ways that repatterns our nervous system so that over time, all of our positive behaviors, ways of being, automatic ways of feeling become habitual and just become who we are.
Wow.
Then we don't have to try so hard.
Okay. So tell me the ways. I'm like, tell me some of the ways. This is, I feel like I live and teach in the world of the mind, and I love a practice, a formula, a process, a ritual. You know, I love things in theory. I love to sit and learn and absorb, but I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? You know, what am I going to do when I get home? And so, but I've also been in health and wellness my whole entire life. So I'm so attached to the physical body. But I don't know if I've ever really done this work, Kate, of bringing them together. So this is like, I feel like a kid in a candy store.
Isn't it cool?
Yes.
So I, like you, have been, I was a dancer. I have 35 million different mind, body, fitness certifications.
Yes.
Like I'm a very kinesthetic person, but I'm also very intellectual. And like, I have the whole, love academia, the whole, all the books and the research and whatever. So bringing them together has accelerated not only my own growth, but also the growth in my students. So we've had, several thousands of students go through this work. And what they find is very similarly, many had done the affirmations, the money mindset work, the beliefs, and some actually had done nervous system healing, but in a completely different way for a completely different area of their lives. And it had never occurred to them to put it together.
Yeah.
And so the accelerating change is profound. And so I'll break it down very simply, knowing that there's a lot here. But the simple is stop, signal safety, and then solve. Okay. So in our lives, we tend to have been taught to solve, right? So it's like, I need to make more money, or I have a credit issue, or I want to buy this house. How am I going to do it? We go right to the how, okay, which is cognitive prefrontal cortex mind.
I think I just gave a keynote speech on action. So I'm like, whoops, but this is where I go.
And listen, I also want to say there is a percentage of the population that is just stuck.
Right.
And getting into mobilization is really important.
Yes.
But here's an important piece for both those of us who probably take too much action without first the healing. Yeah, same. Or for those who just like stay stuck.
Yeah.
Those are both the same. So hyper, which is probably you and me.
Yeah.
And then hypo, which is folks who have trouble getting off the couch. Those are two opposite ends of the very same spectrum of regulation.
Wow.
And so the idea is not one or the other. The idea is how can we come into our responsiveness in our nervous system so that we are not automatically taking an action that is rooted in fear and pressure that will only recreate more of the same, or so that we're not just like flatlined and stuck in hypo.
Yeah.
So how we do that is at the edge. So like, give me an example of a financial desire that you might have or somebody in your community.
$200,000 months, we'll say.
Okay,
I was just talking to somebody about that yesterday.
Okay, I love that. Perfect. So $200,000 months. Amazing. So let's say you are working on getting to $200,000 months and you're working on your sales system plan for that, right? Maybe it's evergreen, maybe it's live. We don't know. Okay. And you're noticing yourself starting to feel anxious. And it's like, wait, I don't know how to do this. I've never done it before. Or who am I to do it? Oh my God, my mom's going to think, who does she think she is? Oh my God, my cousin at my wedding is going to have, 2 eyebrows raised. If I post that on Instagram, Susie from junior high is blah, blah, right? So all of this, and then suddenly it's like, I'm overwhelmed or I'm anxious or now I'm feeling depressed or like all of that is resistance. And resistance is our nervous system waving the red flag, being like, you're headed towards something that is unfamiliar. Therefore, it is automatically a threat. So it sends in all the negative thinking, all the physiological sensations of fear and stress and like trying to get you to not do that.
Yeah.
When we notice that, we don't need to think more about it. It becomes now it's not a head trip, it's a body trip. So we need to find some practices that signal safety for us. And there's, this is far more complex, but I will say one of my favorites is just taking off my shoes and going outside and standing on the earth.
Yes. That's an electromagnetic, something that happens there. It's not just it feels good.
Yeah. No,
there's an energy.
Earth is always regulated.
Yeah.
Mother Earth is always regulated. We are animals and our bodies cannot help but co-regulate with the electromagnetic field of the planet if we're putting our bare skin on the ground.
Yes.
So that's one of my favorites to layer in.
Yes.
There's all sorts of things with like further from the brain, closer to the brain, cross, lateral, whatever, but not to overcomplicate today. So
all we've got is a podcast.
When you are noticing resistance, you want to stop, signal safety, and then solve, or sometimes then savor. Because what so many women find is that actually their lives are better than they can tolerate. They come up against a receiving issue with a husband who's like deeply devoted to them and they just can't take in his love.
Yeah.
Or they're in their beautiful life, but they feel numb. And it's like, wait, I thought there was going to be more. I thought this is all there is.
Yeah.
And so that's also a receiving block.
Yes.
Which is rooted in the nervous system, in our inability to actually feel how good it actually is, because our thermostat for most of us is set to negativity and some level of suffering.
Oh my gosh, Kate, this is so good. And we have not even scratched the surface. So we talked about this right before we started recording. We're dropping this podcast at a very important time. So you have a big event coming up that everyone can attend. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So once a year I do a free workshop, which is taught at the same level that I teach inside my paid programs, because I don't really have like a off-on switch. I'm just kind of there. And so it's called Good with Money, because what I know is that making good money doesn't make you good with money.
Right.
And our world, you and I are sort of similar industry, has a tendency to focus on the making more money, which is great. However, if we're not stewarding the resources we already have in a healthy nervous system and in healthy financial systems, it's like pouring water into a leaky bucket that has all these holes in it and wondering why your bucket keeps emptying out.
Right.
That's what happens when we're like, oh, I'll just pour more money in. Now, the cool thing about this workshop is it is experiential. There are recordings. So if you can't come live, sign up anyway. And we really take people through a beautiful combination of nervous system rewiring live.
I love that.
And the deeper understanding of why it's working. So it's not just theory. You'll actually walk away with new neural patterns having formed and a clear roadmap for taking your financial life to the next level.
I love this so much because, again, I'm just a really big, like, what am I going to do? And, we can sit in seminars for hours and hours and hours and hours. But my thing is, go to the seminars where you're actually doing the work in the seminar, because the second you come back home, life hits and you don't have time to do all the things that they told you to do. So we will link all of that in the show notes. So everybody, if you're listening, we'll put it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all the things, just go to the show notes. All the links will be there. Kate, thank you for your wisdom, for your time today, for all the work that you're doing in the world. Where can people find you best?
Instagram is a great place at Kate Northrup. Even though I'm not the one originating the content, I am actually there checking in a little bit here and there. So just because I know I just told everyone, like, I don't do my Instagram. I actually am the one like, hi.
Yes.
So Instagram is great at Kate Northrup. And then I have a podcast called Plenty. And at the time that this is released, I'm doing I think it's a 6 or a 7-part series for up-leveling your money relationship. So that's a great place to pop into.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, thank you again. And listeners, if you would share this episode with your friends, share it with somebody that would, love it. Make sure you're sharing that link to Kate's event. Tag us on social, message us on Instagram. We would love to hear from you. And that's a wrap for today. And we will see you next week.